Hi everyone, welcome to our first actual unit of math. This is your intro video for Unit 2, Lesson 1, Introduction to Rational Numbers, okay? So right now, I would encourage you to get a notebook if you don't have one already for math class. Let's have it be specific for math, okay? And with that, you can pause the video right now if you need to. Go get a notebook or at least a piece of paper. That way you can follow along, okay? So I'm going to switch over to my document camera. I've got some notes ready for you, and we'll go through some practice problems too. So at the top of your paper, I want you to go ahead and write down Unit 2, Lesson 1, Intro to Rational Numbers. Like I said, feel free to pause the video along the way. There's no reason to rush through this. Let's get some good notes down so that we can be successful, okay? I'm not going through everything that's in your lesson because you already have that structured in there, but we'll go through some major points that will at least help you get started, okay? So first off, let's go through some real-world examples where we actually see rational numbers, okay? So money and budgeting, that's a major topic. It doesn't matter what you do with your life, you're gonna need to know about money and budgeting and things like that, okay? Cooking and baking, that's another big thing. I do a lot of that at home because it's expensive to eat out right now. And so understanding measurements, right? I'm not always going to need one perfect cup of sugar or flour or anything like that, right? I might need 1/3. I got to know what that means. What if I want to double my recipe? Well, then I need to know that 1/3 doubled, or 1/3 times 2 is 2/3, right? All of those things come into play. Those are all rational numbers. Measurements in construction, right? If you need 7/8 of an inch of something, right, you got to know what that means, okay? How to use a tape measure, stuff like that, all right? So, examples of rational numbers and the definition. That's helpful, isn't it? Right? The definition of a rational number is any number that can be written as a fraction or a ratio of two integers. All right? Integers are whole numbers like this, 3, 4, okay? Or they could be negatives. So those are some examples of rational numbers right there for you. Okay? One big thing to make note of that I don't have in here though is that if it is written as a fraction, that bottom number, the denominator, cannot be a 0. Okay, so you might want to make note of that too, but I know it's in your lesson. Okay, some other important information. All right, some decimals go on forever, but rational numbers either stop, another word for that is terminate, or they repeat in a pattern. And here's some examples for you too. So a terminating example would be 0 and 5/10, right? That's an example of one that ends, right? It ends after that 5/10. A repeating example would be like 0 and, right? And then there's 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, and it goes on forever and ever and ever. This little line, that can represent that it goes on forever, but it's also equal to 1/3. So that can be written, right, as a fraction, but when you take that 1 divided by 3, even if you just do it in your calculator right now, you're going to notice that that 3 goes on forever. Okay? So I know that was pretty fast. Again, pause the video, rewind the video, get some of that stuff written down in your notes right now, okay? Let's see. After that, let's go through a couple I have 3 examples for you set up. Okay? So number 1, John needs 2/5 cup of sugar for the cookies he is making. Write the rational number that he needs. That might not be the best worded question in the world, but really what we're doing is we're taking this value right here, 2/5, and we're writing that as a rational number. We're using numbers, not using letters, okay? So 2/5 that shows me that we're going to be writing that as a fraction. That's going to be the simplest way to write it. We can say 2, there's my numerator, over 5. 2/5. Okay, he needs 2/5 of a cup of sugar. All right, that's kind of a hard value too because those aren't always on measuring cups. Okay, our next example, which is a rational number? Okay, so if you remember just from a few minutes ago, right, we talked about that rational numbers end. Okay, in your lesson, you're going to learn a little bit about square roots. Okay, so perfect squares are where you can take one number and multiply it by itself to get a new number. So some examples would be like the square root of 4, right? Well, I can take 2 times 2 to get to 4, right? So the square root of 4 is 2, okay? I can't do that with 6. Let me set it up on my calculator and I'll show it to you. So, hopefully you can see that okay. Refocus it real quick. Actually, we'll do this. I don't know if that's better. But so I'm going to put in the 6 and I'm going to find the square root of it. Oh my goodness, that just goes on forever and ever and ever, and there's no pattern to it, right? So what that tells me is that this is actually an irrational number, okay? This one right here is the rational number because it ends, right? Remember, it has to end or it has to terminate, okay? And the last example that I have for you right now before you get into the full-blown lesson, okay, is this one right here. So we've got 4 numbers, -3/2, 5/10, the square root of 9, and -2, all right? And I'll give you a big hint. This is actually one of the problems from your practice that you're going to do on page 14. Okay, so pay attention, write it down. So it says, put the above numbers in the correct place on a number line. Well, that means first thing I got to do, I got to make myself a number line. So I'm going to do that right now. Okay, so I notice I have some negative numbers, I have some positive numbers. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put 0 right in the middle there. Okay, and then let's see, I'll go -1, -2, -3. Okay, negatives always go to the left on a number line. Okay, and then positive numbers go to the right, and I'll do +1, +2, and +3. Okay, so let's see here. First, we do need to know a little bit about fractions, or in this case, an improper fraction, right? We've got -3/2. Well, first off, it's a negative, so I know it's going to be somewhere over here. And even if let's say you might have it memorized, you might recognize what that is, like as a decimal, okay? Or we can also think, well, this is saying like 3 divided by 2, or what is half of 3? Well, half of 3 is 1.5, but I got that negative there. So I have -1.5, all right? And let's say the numbers are a little funkier. Maybe you don't know how to do that. We'll go ahead and we can set that up as a division problem. We can do 3 divided by 2, because that's technically what fractions are. Okay, fractions are a division problem, 3 divided by 2. Well, 2 goes into 3 one whole time, so I can go ahead and subtract out what I used, but I have 1 left over. Well, 2 doesn't go into 1, so I have to go on to my decimal points. I'm going to add my decimal, and this is called annexing a 0. I'm going to annex a 0, and I'm going to drop that down, okay? Now I get to treat this like a 10, okay? So 2 goes into 10 5 times. right? But remember, it was a negative, so my answer is going to be -2, or negative as well. All right, so -1.5. Well, here's my -1, but it's a little further than that. It's right in between there. Let me use a different color. That way we can really see where we're at. So here's my first one. There's -1.5, or I could put -3/2. Okay, for that first answer. Next, I have 5/10, or also known as a half, right? That's the same thing, okay? That's going to be right here, half. It's half of 1. So it's going to go right in between my 0 and my 1. So there's my 0.5, or my 5/10. Ooh, the next one. There's one of those square roots, okay? This one, the square root of 9, hopefully you can think, okay, is there something I could multiply by itself to get to 9, right? And hopefully you come to 3 times 3, right? 3 times 3 gets me to 9, so the square root of 9 is the number 3. Okay, so that's going to go right over here on my number line. There's my number 3, or my square root of 9. And the last one, oh, I don't have to solve anything on this one, thank goodness. It's only -2, and that's already on my number line. So I can put that right there. There's my -2. Okay. To take it a step further, not that this question asks for it, but we could write them in order now. Now that we have them on the number line, we could write them in order. Let's say in order. So the smallest number in that list is -2. Then we have -3 halves, 5/10, and the square root of 9. Okay, hopefully that helps get you going on at least the introduction. Make sure that you take your time on each page throughout your lesson, do all of those practice problems, and of course reach out to me if you need help, okay? Have a great day.